Audio Content Lab.
Whether it's on a stage or on a landing page, there's something about the confluence between music and marketing that feels harmonious. Musicians perform in front of an audience much like marketers. Both are essentially singing for their supper, but there's a delay in the response times. If someone doesn't like your music, you'll know it immediately. Whereas, if someone doesn't like your marketing, you'll really only hear about it when the P&Ls come in and they escort you out. In this episode, we plumb the depths of the musician marketing matrix, learn how these two disciplines converge and divert, and find out how brands and bands can generate revenue and rave reviews. Let's roll.
Sounds like
Marketing.
Sounds like marketing.
Welcome to Sounds Like Marketing, the audio content marketing podcast that's here to dial businesses and brands into the importance of sound. I'm your captain, Jake Sanders, and I'm joined by the co-captain, Paul Julius. Ahoy, matey.
Ahoy! Aye, aye, sir.
I can hear the buoys in the distance.
It's all I'm pulling levers and raising ropes. I don't know what's going on.
We're eating citrus fruits to avoid wait, what did they have?
Scurvy.
Scurvy.
Yeah, scurvy.
Yes, we are scurvy free here on the podcast today. We have an amazing show today. It's about the musician marketer matrix. We have a fantastic marketer slash musician, Anthony Garone, who's going to be sharing his tidbits with us, but wanted to start today with a hot take about the intersection in between music and marketing. And I found something on EnglishLive.ef.com, and it's entitled 5 Interesting Links Between Music and Language. And I chose this because I was thinking language and marketing are copywriting, strategy documents, all those things, like, connecting with stakeholders. Like, you need to be good with your words. You need to make good words if you want to make good marketing.
You got to word good.
You have to word better. But so I'll start out with this intro. It says, whether it's spoken, sign, or written, language is a human universal. I'm wondering if they missed some words there. Anyway, did you know the music? Did you know the music is not far behind? Now I really wonder if an AI wrote this, because there's some grammatical problems here. Anyway. There are few cultures in the world that do not have music of some sort. Music and language have closer links than just being something we all do. Let's take a look at 5 interesting things you might not know music and language had in common. I'll list them out here. Both are forms of social bonding. 2, musicians process music as language. 3, people remember music in the same way as speech. 4, music helps your grammar and vocabulary. And 5, music and language keep your brain fit. There's a ton of, neuro research in here and links that you can find out. But I think that I chose this because marketing is the language of business and music itself is a language. So there are many overlapping things. And I think if you have mastery of language, you're right. Like I said, you're writing good copy. You're learning how to connect with stakeholders, taking your analytics and making sense of them. You use words to do all those things. And I think that musicians are naturally inclined to get this right. And maybe that's what makes us better marketers than the average Joe and Jane out there. I mean, musicians can parse language better than non-musicians. That's just a fact. So intonation, those hidden inferences in language, I think musicians are more primed to get that. And those skills might lend themselves to getting the tone right, tone of voice, creating more characters, being more showy with language. I think musicians have a skill here, so that's why I brought this in. I'm curious to hear your hot take, as I know the audience is.
Yeah, I think, and I love what you said, and I think there's definitely, people always say like music is a language,
right?
And especially like you and I talk about jazz a lot, and that's the one thing that strikes me is that like people are always like, well, how do you play jazz? How do you get, where's the handbook? Where's the method? And it's like, it's a language. And once you start learning little bits of it, just like anything else, your vocabulary starts to expand. And that's kind of what I took out of this, was kind of going the other way. The quote from the article that I liked said, even without words, we can tell the difference between different people playing the same piece of music. And the way our brain processes language and music is more than simply recognizing words or notes. But it's highly complex and uses similar areas of the brain. So I think what we're kind of saying is very similar there. Like, that's how you can take a theme and expand on it. But because on a very basic fundamental level, people will know what you're about, right? And I think that's think about how like musicals come together. Like in real life, people don't just stop and start singing about what they've got on their grocery list.
Right.
But we can all relate to when we've written a grocery list and it kind of rhymes. Like, you're like, hey man, this is like a little, shopping haiku.
Yeah.
And so I think being able to, this is like how we can use different themes and relate music to text and images without having to put a big arrow and pointing to it. And that's how people can identify things, especially like in like pop culture where things go viral. There's an undercurrent of understanding that maybe is a little bit beyond words. And I think musicians are tapped into that on a more regular basis.
And you bring up a good point, is not just musicians take those considerations. Non-musicians do that as well. And I think your audience deserves a little bit of rhythm and rhyme and, those things that are typically reserved, for musicals and stuff. But, I was just thinking, plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. The old Alka-Seltzer tagline, they're not only using rhyme, but they're also using onomatopoeia, like that. That's what that sound sounds like. And these are the words. And I think there's something that's deeply connective with music that marketers can learn and use and be more about. But you also mentioned something interesting is, that music is a language. And how do you learn language? You just immerse yourself in it. And one thing I think musicians have is they have legacy. I'm listening to the way, Miles Davis plays the trumpet versus Freddie Hubbard. Bill Evans on the keys versus Herbie Hancock. Like, you can tell the differences, but it's the same instrument. But you have a legacy to interact with. And a lot of marketers are so focused on new, shiny stuff that they don't respect the culture. They don't immerse themselves in marketing and advertising. They're just busy trying to get their edgewise in, saying, no, it needs to be, AR, VR, it needs the metaverse, or, so digital advertising went through, its struggle period too, where it was like,
Sure.
Big advertising's dead. But there's something you can learn from the past, and musicians learn from their past. And I don't know if marketers are more apt to do that, but I do believe that marketers with that set of skill, when they immerse themselves in the language, they become better musicians. And I wonder if the same is true for marketing.
Well, I think, it's interesting that when we were talking to Anthony, I found out he was good friends with Steve Vai.
Hello.
And Steve Vai, if anybody doesn't know, honestly, you should go check it out. An incredible musician, cut his teeth with like Frank Zappa, did the guitar for Halo.
Nuts.
Just really, really good. But the thing about, Steve Vai is one of those guys who's like, the 80s like shredder, like Steve, Joe Satriani,
right,
like those guys who are just really technical. And I like Steve Vai a lot, but I don't like him for the technical stuff. I like it because I know, like, as soon as I heard that Halo music, I said to my son, I was like, hey, that sounds like Steve Vai. Like, I can identify, I know what that dude sounds like. And to me, there's something deep there that I think advertisers could lean on more, of having some kind of sonic identity, that's something that's like, just like the tone of your voice,
right,
or how you choose words. And I think that's kind of sort of where we go with the interview a little bit too, is kind of like, how do you develop that palette? How do you, whether you're a brand or a musician or a marketer trying to, get stakeholder buy-in, like, how do you get that communication working on a level beyond just like graphs and spreadsheets and stuff?
Absolutely. You know what I mean? And I think that's the language communication. Like that's the rubber meets the road moment for marketers. Can you connect and hold that connection? I think that's where we get into some amazing things, learning about Anthony's skills, as not only a musician, but a ghostwriter. He's written several books. He's very prolific on YouTube. He's comfortable in front of a video. Like, there's just so many great overlapping themes in between musicians and marketers. And I think everybody's going to enjoy it. And even if they don't, they could throw vegetables at us and they'd just be throwing vegetables at their phone because it's not going to go through the pipes.
It might.
It might.
Try it.
Hopefully it won't. Yeah, just try it. Hopefully it won't.
Hashtag us.
yeah, just hashtag at us. But no, plenty of amazing stuff and revelations in here, exploring the musician marketer matrix with Anthony Garone. So let's get to it.
Let's go.
Anthony Garone is a musician, ghostwriter, YouTuber, content marketing specialist with nearly a decade of experience working with businesses to deliver products and content strategies that help them build their brands. He's co-founder of Edify Content. He's traveled the world playing music, has written several books, has a master's degree in science, and he's bringing his well-rounded heat to the Sounds Like Marketing podcast to talk about the musician marketer matrix. Tony, how are you, sir?
Holy cow, that was incredible. Wow. I want you to follow me around. I know everyone says that when they hear that kind of thing, but like I legit do.
I will be your hype man, and I will have a stand-up keyboard, a keytar, in
please,
whatever.
A keytar, yes,
Yeah,
and a all white suit.
Yeah, I got to get that out of the dry cleaners. No, so thank you so much for being here. You're amazing to follow on social. We were talking about this before we recorded. You're releasing a lot of great videos and you're unpacking some of your passions for music, but you're also really talented in the content marketing area that you are professionally engaged with now. So I wanted to kind of get into that. Let's talk about your path from a musician to a marketer.
Yeah, so it starts with heartache and heartbreak. I think like many marketing stories. No, but the reality is I grew up as a teenager. Like I heard Steve Vai, this guitar player, I heard him on the radio once, and it was like the most life-changing moment for me in my teens. I had no idea the guitar could be played like that. I didn't even play the guitar. It was just like, I need to do that. It was incredible. And so just through this stroke of incredible serendipity, or in my case, I call it the finger of God came down and touched my life that day. Like the first day I heard Steve Vai, I found out that my dad's friend grew up with him. And I knew this guy like my whole life. And like, so the day I heard Steve Vai, that afternoon, we had an appointment at his house to go visit him like a couple months later. So like,
nice.
I went from never hearing real instrumental guitar music to visiting my new idol,
Right.
super, super quick. So anyway, long story short, I thought all it took was being great, like playing really well, and that would get you famous. Like, how would I know any different? I'm just a dumb kid from New York. I played guitar and I was like, that's it. I'm going to get in the guitar magazines. And the more and more I tried, I actually ended up working for Steve in my early 20s. I lived at his house and took care of all of his music stuff. And then I realized, holy cow, you actually have to like market yourself. People
Mm.
don't care about your music if you don't talk about it. And I had no idea how to talk about it. I just would put stuff online and no one would listen. And my website would be like zero, you know, the old Webalizer software would be like 0 visits, 0 visits, 0 visits. I'm like, man,
Yep.
I must really suck as a musician. So I just never put it together. And like, people, they don't want to hear just good music, they want a reason to listen to it. And so that was like a huge lesson for me, that because I'm kind of slow, took me about 20 years to learn. You know, so I thought I would become a famous guitar player, and I spent my whole, you know, life practicing 8 to 12 hours a day every day for years, thinking I would become famous, and then realizing, no, I have no chance of becoming famous because I have no idea how to even take a photo of myself to look cool, you know.
It's crazy that I find a lot of people in marketing had bands in college, you know, and you know, some of the graphic people I work with, you know, design the band posters, you know,
Mhm.
and some of those, you know, lead players, you know, end up being sales folks or something like
Yeah,
that.
right.
Well, but it's very interesting because you know, I'm similar in that regard, you know, coming from a jazz world, you hear those stories of John Coltrane, you know, practicing 12 hours a day, you know, same with Ron Carter, you know, Sonny Rollins playing on the bridge or whatever those stories are. And you think, if I just practice hard enough, I'm going to get good. But you bring up a really good point, and that's where the musician marketing matrix starts to combine, is that you have to give people a reason to show up. And I'm pretty sure you were kvetching about the quality of popular music. You know, you're like, well, this isn't even good. You know, but why does everybody know it? You know, and
Mhm.
similar things can be happen for products. You're like, this is not a really good product here, but everybody has one. You know,
Mhm.
so I mean, but you still play. Like, have you adjusted the way you're kind of presenting that? I mean, you have a lot of success on YouTube now. How did you learn how to kind of combine those two things to get your musicianship more marketable?
Yeah, honestly, I watch my old YouTube videos and they're super cringy, but it's like you have to start somewhere.
Hmm.
And getting on YouTube, I was actually on YouTube in the very early days, 2007, 2008. I had a video that got 90,000 views and it terrified me and I deleted it. I'm not joking. Like, I couldn't deal with it. It was like every time I had, like, God gave me all these opportunities to become a famous guitar player. It just happened over and over again. And I was just too scared. You know,
Wow.
things would go right. I'd go work for Steve Vai. Nope, that wasn't going to work out. Hit videos on YouTube. Nope, I'm going to delete that. That doesn't work out. You have to have like confidence and marketability and talent, you know. It's
Right.
this whole stew of things. And I think I just kind of like a lot of CEOs and tech startup founders, they're like, I just need to make a great product. I got to have cool features. That's all you need. Then everyone's going to buy it. And you're like, no, dude, no one cares about your stupid product. You have to make them care. You have to make them remember your product. And so I think with the music thing, my initial goal, because it was 0, 0, 0 every single week, I was like, I just want to reach 250 people. I'm talking about impressions. I'm not even talking about like subscribers.
Right.
And now I'm at 21,000, you know, and I've been doing everything I can to slow it down and put out, you know, content that people won't enjoy en masse, because there's that like rebellion part of me, the contrarian. But my channel's called Make Weird Music. There
Yeah.
should not be a million followers of a channel called Make Weird Music, you know?
Right.
So now that it's at, you know, approaching 25,000, I'm like, I got to put weirder stuff up
Yeah,
there. I
yeah,
am.
weird enough. Well,
Yeah.
you know, it's interesting though, and I'm a big Steve Vai fan too, and I didn't know this before we met, so
Oh,
um, but you know what? I think him and like Joe Satriani, like back in the day, created so many virtuoso guitarists who never got out of their bedroom.
that's right.
For exactly what you're talking about. And
Mm.
I think that's kind of where the marketing I've read with Steve Vai too. You know, he kind of experienced the same thing. He got those, you know, he had his get hired by Steve Vai break that you did with Frank Zappa.
Yep.
But it wasn't instant. You know what I mean? Like Frank wasn't just like, oh, you're really good. And I think there's a little bit of that kind of finding yourself. You have to sort of, not only have the musical ability, but you have to like be able to, look at yourself as, Steve Vai, the product, not Steve Vai, the creator. You know what I mean? And I think that's a little bit of a leap. And I think that's kind of where you're going, with the YouTube channel and stuff like that. Like, how do you differentiate that creative person into something that people are going to follow,
For sure. And the other thing is, and I learned this working for Steve, and frankly, working with all the guitarists, like there's a whole halo or a sea of guitarists that surround him, and seeing them living out of their vans, like they're on the cover of Guitar World magazine and they're sending money home and they're eating Taco Bell every night. That's like the life of a touring guitarist,
Yeah.
People don't want instrumental guitar music, but like Steve is such an anomaly, But the other piece of it, and I think this is the piece that most people miss, is truly believing this is what you're supposed to be doing. It's not fun. It's not interesting. It's not, it would be cool. It's, this is my life. I was created to do this. There are no other career options for me. You have to be like absolutely positive this is the thing you're going to know or do. And so for me, I now I have that confidence of like, as a marketer, no, this is what I do. It's like, it's not even a question. And it's the same thing with the guitar stuff. It's like, no, I'm a good guitar player. I beat myself physically. I beat myself pulling my hair out, punching my legs, like bruising myself, pinching myself till I bled because I couldn't play a stupid solo that 4 people would listen to. It's like, I realized it was not worth it. And now I look back and I'm like, dude, you were so ignorant. It's incredible. And now I'm just like, no, I am a content guy in the tech space and I'm a good guitar player and I put out videos that I enjoy and I don't care if people watch them, but they're going to be super high quality and engaging for people who are looking for interesting stuff. So that's what I know about myself and I'm totally confident in it. And I never doubt it anymore. I'm done doubting myself for, I did that for decades. Like, why waste the rest of my life doubting myself? And I think that's the thing that's missing from a lot of us musicians. We just spend a lot of time in a bedroom with no accountability, and then we think we're great, and we hit the real world. We go on stage and we make a mistake, and suddenly we're total effing idiots and lunatics and failures. Well, so that's kind of how I see it.
Well, I love it because I'm just hearing so many themes that are clashing together, but they're also kind of making a harmony with musicianship and marketing, because just like what you're saying, I mean, like me and the marketing team hitting around these taglines, that's a cute little logo, like, oh, this landing page is great. And then the minute you send it out live, you get to start seeing what those receipts are. And worse is that the accountability is now connected to your livelihood, So it's like, it can feel very conflicting, but I also feel like there's a bit of inspiration that musicians can give marketing teams, who are basically on the stage performing for their products or services, in resilience and, kind of trying and being okay with failing, and also trying to get into your bag. Like, hey, I know this is my bag. Like, and so, I mean, I'm kind of jumping ahead and presupposing things, but how do you think being a musician helps your work as a marketer, and then also vice versa?
Oh man, it's my identity. I mean, how do you separate the music from the person? To me, it's like as universal as the language you speak or the color of your skin or whatever it is. It's like, no, this is who I am. It's my genetics. It's in my DNA. Like, you're a musician, right? There's people who like music, but then there's like the guys like us, or guys, gals, whatever, like us, who are like, no, this isn't just an interest. Like, I live music. It's just like I can't make a living doing music, and that's okay, but I'm going to find something else, and that's going to support my music habit,
Mm-hmm.
And so the way I look at being a musician versus a marketer, Musician gives you real-time live practice in discipline and in mistake making and recovery. So when you're playing music, especially with a band, you are interacting with other people in sort of a project-based, context. And that live interaction is actually time-based and it's sequential. Like you can't be out of sync with the other people. It has to be at the right time. It can't disrupt the rhythm or the flow. But in marketing, it's kind of like that, but it's not real time. It's just really slow. Like you put out something and then you wait for the Google Analytics, which is essentially your audience meter, it's your applause.
Right.
So you got to figure out what are the tools I can use to hear the audience, to hear the applause, or to hear them walking out the room and throwing beer bottles at the chicken wire on the stage, like that's a reality. Like you're going to have people visiting your site. Just like you're going to have people walking by, they're drinking their beer and you're playing up on stage, right? They may stop and actually look at what you're doing. And that's good. That's like an impression, right? You've made an impression. And then there's the guys who throw money in your case or whatever, that's also better. That's like mid funnel, right? you got something out of it, but you didn't really close the deal, right? But it's when they type in your name on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and they look you up and they follow you, you've made the sale. That's the conversion. You went from impression to conversion. And I think there's real power in that, because when you're a musician, you can tell you started a song and people are like, yeah, into it. Then like you get to verse 2 and people are done. They're like talking again. You hear the chatter come up, if like you're playing a wedding or something, that's when you've lost them. And so to me, it's like marketing is the same thing. It's just, you don't have 3 minutes, you have 3 months,
Right.
So your time scales are a bit different. And you still are doing things in sync with other people. You still have to, like, the sheet music to me is the product that you're kind of promoting or whatever it is. So you have to understand how to read music. You have to be literate. You have to know what people want to hear. Like, we're not into avant-garde marketing. Like, no one wants avant-garde marketing results, right? There is no John Cage of marketing because no one cares. Like, marketing is an art, but there's a business aspect to it. Music is pure art. If you want business as part of it, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But like, you have to make that decision. So to me, there's like tons of parallels. I don't feel like the marketing side informs my musician side in terms of the music performance or anything like that. It just helps me to be selective about what I do, knowing that there's an audience or a market.
So that is exactly where I wanted to take this question and line of inquiry is you're not going to be everybody's bag. Like you're not going to be everybody's favorite band, and I've been in battle of the bands situations and definitely lost them more than I've won them. But I was like, this sucks. And you realize that a lot of people just bring the most fans and then whoever claps the loudest, but I think one thing that I'm interested in hearing your take on is you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay.
Oh, no. It's not just that's okay. That is the greatest thing possible. It's a wonderful gift that you are not everyone's cup of tea. I mean, can you imagine if everyone liked you? That'd be the worst possible thing. I don't even like when 20 people like me, Forget about everyone. It's hard enough to keep up with my inbox. Why would you want everyone to like you? It's pointless. If everyone likes you, you're saying nothing. You're doing nothing. Like, you have to stand up for something. G.K. Chesterton said that Marcus Aurelius is like the worst kind of person because he has pride without passion. He basically worships himself, but has nothing to be worshipful about. And to me, that's what like self-aggrandizing marketing is. It's like, hey, look how great we are. No, that's not why anyone buys anything. Not because you're great, because you solve a problem for them. So I think like no one has the same problem. So why would you appeal to everyone? You're not water.
No, and
you're a freaking SaaS application,
Yeah, bring it down a notch. But I also think a lot of those marketing folks are into the stoicism
Oh yeah.
If you talk about, Marcus Aurelius, I mean, not generally known as a Stoic, but is regularly plucked in that orchestra.
Oh yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of folks that are really driving themselves through themselves, but they're not listening and looking and, being aware and being okay with the fact that some people might not like you, some people might like you. You have to kind of be okay with that. But it's like, no, I'm being who I am, and I'm true to who I am. And you say, well, that could be the truth, But I mean, speaking personally as a musician, I started as a jazz lion. Like, I wanted to just rage and just play the most face melting saxophone stuff everyone's heard of. And then I moved to New York, got a couple gigs, but they were like boogaloo gigs, just organ trio stuff where you're just kind of like riffing soul stuff. And then I got a gig as in the wedding band. And it was the most fun I've had on stage, because I was like, okay, do I want to play Brown Eyed Girl again? No. But are these people jamming to Brown Eyed Girl and having the time of their life? And then it kind of adjusted my sails to say, hey, it's not only like, I think a lot of musicians are okay with this emaciated little sailboat. And they're like, you don't understand me, And I think if you can increase your sail and see what kind of billows up from the wind you get, you can go a lot further. And I mean, am I making sense to you? Does that vibe with you? Do you have a
Oh
take
yeah,
on that?
yeah. I mean, I run Make Weird Music, right? I interviewed a guy named Ostrich von Nipple last week. Okay, so
Oh
it,
yeah,
so
ostrich.
yeah,
Mr. Van Nipple.
That's my boy.
yeah. And what's funny is, like, when I first interviewed him, I had like 2,000 subscribers, and we were like, holy cow, the exposure we're gonna give this guy. And now it's 10 times that. And we're like, holy cow, people are gonna like flip out if they even click the thumbnail. But I
Right.
think like Ostrich is a great example. A guy named Ostrich von Nipple is not trying to appeal. He's like going all the way in the art direction. He art is like the sublime thing, right? Business is never the sublime thing because you're never done. You're always chasing it, whatever. But art is like, man, you can really hit it and it feeds you for a long time. And I don't mean monetarily, it feeds your soul. Some people may, their souls may be fed by business, but I feel like there's just too much materialism wrapped up in that. And so it
Yes.
depends on like how much do you want to pursue the art of the art? So you could be like an awesome ad designer or a marketer or something like that. But there are artists like musicians who don't care if people listen to their music. They just don't care. This guy, Conlon Nancaro, he wrote tons and tons of music for player piano. It was humanly impossible to play music, and it's incredible. He wrote it. He actually used the hole puncher thing on the scroll, the sheet of paper, and he hand punched everything. He did stuff that were geometric pieces. Like, he actually drew lines halfway, quarter of a way through the scroll, and had the two hands playing at different tempos and stuff.
Love it.
That guy literally only made music for himself. He made it for the player piano in his house. And it wasn't until Georgi Ligeti like discovered him that Nancaro had any sort of notoriety or fame. But this guy didn't care. He was just punching holes in a sheet of paper to hear pieces of music that he thought were cool on a player piano, right? That's not marketing. You can't be a marketer and do that. Marketing is like inherently about reaching people. You'd be a fool to believe that marketing can be so artistically done that it reaches nobody and only 3 people understand it. No, that's stupid. That's not marketing.
Well,
You know?
and let me just jam on this too, because when I got into advertising and marketing, I was much more into the artist sensibilities. I was like, let's make something creative. Let's do something nobody's ever done.
Right. Go for it. That's great. That's great.
That's great. But when I started to realize you need to make sure you're gauging the audience impact and, business effect, because there could be a ad like the head on, head on, apply directly to forehead, head on, apply directly to forehead, head on, apply directly to forehead. And it said it like 40 more times.
That's
and
right.
I was like,
that's great.
Boy, I get it. But also, they probably sold the shit out of some head on.
That's
you
right.
know, and it was not art. it was meant to do that thing for the business, for the product. And I remember having a dissociative moment where I was like, yo, I know you want to do jingles and you want to art and you love, Klimt and, his work in the late 1800s and, Toulouse-Lautrec and all those like really beautiful, like effusive, just gorgeous art as advertisement. But you need to make sure that you're checking in with yourself and you're not just trash talking marketing that actually works because you don't like it. Like, hey man, I might not like it, but it's turning the needle for them. And I
Right.
think there was something in my head that was like, it hurt my brain. I mean, did you have kind of a similar effect? When you got into marketing, you were like, hey, this Penderecki piece is like really great, or and everyone's like, it's not
honestly-
the jingle we need.
No, really, the whole thing for me was like, well, I mean, running Make Word Music, I'm pursuing people who eschew the need for money. Like they are not trading money and attention for what they produce. I mean, obviously they're trying to make money and stuff like that, but there are musicians that are like, I'm going to make a career out of this, and there are musicians who say, I want to be an artist, right?
Right.
And very, 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 very rarely do those two things coincide. It does
Right.
happen, but like we may see the top 30 artists who are like that. You might have a Bob Dylan or something like that who emerges, but like for every Bob Dylan, there's like 8 million musicians who are not making it, trying to do the same thing.
Right.
But when it comes to like, why did I go into marketing? Honestly, COVID hit, and I said, all the business websites are garbage. And I was on a sales team and they're like, we have nothing to send to the clients. All our collateral sucks. I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah. So I started writing blog posts, and I'd listened to this Naval Ravikant podcast, and he said something like, your superpower is the thing that you're so good at, you don't even realize that you are good at it. And I started doing this blogging stuff for Allstate because they acquired the company I was working for.
Wow.
And we went through that whole acquisition and stuff. But like, I started just writing these blog posts to help our sales engineer or sales team who had no idea how to sell our product to Verizon and other corporations. They don't know what the tech does. They can't explain it. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll write some blog posts. And the content director's like, dude, this is the best content we've ever gotten. I'm like, really? And he's like, I've tried getting content from all our executives. It takes some weeks and you turn this around right away. I was like, yeah, well, it only took me a half hour. And he's like, it took you a half hour to write this, And so when COVID hit, it just made me realize, oh man, maybe I have this superpower, because I kept on writing more articles and the content guys like, this is great. Keep them coming, man. Come on. And I realized like, we're not the only sales team that has no good content on our website,
Right.
So I might as well go full time into this. And my business partner, Ellis, and we both started at InfoArmor that got acquired by Allstate. We worked like 2 desks apart from each other, and we both saw the opportunity. So yeah, we jumped all the way in, and we've had no shortage of clients. It's like an ocean of opportunity. There's no competition. It's just crazy. There's tons of opportunity if you know how to write and tech products.
Mm-hmm.
So actually that leads in perfectly to the next question here. But I think what we were kind of talking about here, even going back to the music and stuff like that, is that, I mean, it's about communicating, but it's kind of about communicating to the right audience in a way that they can understand, right?
Yeah.
So, what is it? And we've been kind of touching here a lot about how, like, this isn't for everybody. And if you're making music, one thing that strikes me, even just listening to, YouTube, just so everybody knows, these guys are like way better musicians than I am, but listening to them talk, there's a thing about music. Like, you don't have to be awesome to make good music, or even any music. You know what I mean? Like, think about even like punk and stuff like that. There's a lot of attitude. There's a lot of, and I think there's a lot of like, that's kind of marketing and in just in the presentation, right? And making sure that you're presenting your whole thing in the right way, to the right people.
Absolutely.
And I'm just kind of curious, like, do you feel that, like, is there something that just business in general understands about how music works and how music and marketing kind of work together? Like, there's some parallels there, I think.
Man, I don't know. I mean, I think about the melodies of great music and the melodies of modern music. The national anthem to me is the US national anthem is one of the strongest melodically written pieces ever. Dun 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 dun, right? We have that motif. And then the motif evolves. Da 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 da. It's the same rhythm. Da 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 da. And then, it repeats, and there's all of this motivic variation that happens, and it's all just major scale stuff. There's nothing fancy or weird going on. And Stravinsky did a wonderful arrangement of it and added this really cool sort of like an augmented chord at the end of it that people supposedly thought he was making fun of the US on, but he wasn't. He was honoring it. Anyway, I think that, like, when it comes to a good melody, there's timeless aspects to it, but we've stopped writing great melodies in pop music. My son was listening to this Post Malone song, and the whole thing was da 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 da. It's 5 minutes of that, of three notes. Da da da, or da 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 da. That's it. Three distinct notes. Today you can get away with that because music is more of like a pastiche, sort of like a background that people kind of speak over, or I don't know, there's textural things. It's kind of like an environmental thing, whatever.
Right.
People don't look to music for the same things that they did historically. And I think the same kind of things happen with marketing. That's why there are these kinds of schmucks on Twitter who think they know how to market, and they write stupid tweets that are what we call like fortune cookie tweets, or they're just high engagement tricks. But there's a great saying, I think it comes from this mental performance coach named Kapil Gupta: hacks are for hacks. And the only people using hacks are people who need the hacks. Well-practiced practitioner doesn't need hacks. They know shortcuts. They know how to do things efficiently. But like, they're not using the real clickbait, the really like cheesy modern type of marketing, because they have dignity. They respect themselves and the audience. I don't think like modern pop music respects the audience in the same way that it might have 50 to 70 years ago. And maybe the audience doesn't deserve that kind of respect all the time either. I mean, frankly, most of us are sitting on a toilet scrolling on Twitter, and that's how we find out about some new product. So like the consumption of the medium is also pretty different. And we're bombarded by ads, more ads and marketing than ever. Now we're suspicious of anyone who connects with us on LinkedIn. It's like, oh, here's another human being who wants to get to know me. Yeah, what are they selling?
Right.
And if there's a personalized message, you can totally read into it. You're like, oh, that's an automated message. It's, to me, like marketing and advertising and all this stuff. There's so much of this like modern non-melodic approach going on that's just kind of like, it's just hacks. And that's why people love these mental models and growth hacks and all this stupid garbage that helps nobody. It just helps someone make a quick buck, and that's it. Then they make their quick buck and they have no career.
So you're absolutely right. And then I'm also kind of thinking about this need for connection and emotion and expression.
Mhm.
And that doesn't go away. Like, it's still there. The modern
Right.
musical audience is still desirous of these things.
Of course.
And I think they deserve them. I mean, even if you are on the toilet scrolling, does that deserve art? Maybe not. But can it hit on those things? And I do believe that, just kind of speaking personally, this resurgence of musicals, like when Hamilton hit, people were like, whoa. And There you go. I mean, that's not melodically, there's a lot of rap stuff, so that's kind of monotone. But it's kind of hitting us in the medium we're familiar with, but getting the depth with the content. And then in canto and, basically just Lin-Manuel
Yeah.
Miranda. But there's something about him being the understudy to Stephen Sondheim and sort of the progenitors of, Rent and those kind of like more complex musical things, but kind of delivered in a nice package. I think it just hit us because we didn't know we needed it. And,
Yeah, but how many? I mean, you can't just look at the successes. This is the problem with survivorship bias, right? There are entire graveyards full of people and ideas that never made it. And it could have been the cure for cancer. We just don't know. It was poorly marketed, right?
yeah.
So Lin-Manuel has done a great job at like packaging all the right things in the right way for the right audience, and it caught fire.
Right.
But how many failed musicals have there been that have done the same kinds of like attempted the same kinds of things?
Right.
So I just think like there's the right message on the right medium at the right time. There's luck, there's preparation. Louis Pasteur says luck favors the prepared.
Right.
So all of these things are right and make sense. And marketing it's just like music in that it's a roll of the dice. You could write an awesome song and it's 5 years ahead of its time or 2 years ahead of its time. And then someone writes a song that's just like it and it's a huge hit. Why? We only have 12 notes, right? in an octave. And so you have a 12-tone scale, and Western music, our Western ears have certain expectations about chord changes. So you're already like creating new constraints on there's only so much music that could be popular, right?
Right.
And so how many new pop songs are kind of repackaging old pop songs, or they're sampling old pop songs and doing something new? It's really like they're playing with expectations and dopamine. I think people have like just different expectations now of music and marketing. And so you have to play that game too. And if everyone feels like they're constantly bombarded by ads and marketing, then you have to figure out a way to stand out. And when you stand out, you can be viewed as a success and you can get 10,000 Twitter followers and start selling your course. But you don't know that that's like a repeatable form of success. And so I just feel like people who like Derek Walker and Carlos Reek and Liesl McDonald, you see all these people on Twitter and they have established careers. They barely ever brag. They're not out there saying, buy my course. They're out there making a freaking killing. You see Liesl's house that she's buying. It's like, are you kidding me? Like people who do these hack things, they don't end up in these houses. They rent those houses and make a TikTok video about their fake life and their fake Ferrari, that they rented for the day. So I don't know. It's a soapbox thing. Sorry.
No. This is the place to do those things.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, and in continuing with that, I mean, do you have any kind of, more specific stories about when like the power of music really hit? Like, and then conversely, any horror stories about something maybe going the wrong way?
Oh, sure. Well, actually, my second book is basically that. For 22 years, I chased one song. I learned and practiced one song, not consistently over 22 years, but like it took me 22 years to be able to play it. It's this King Crimson song called Fracture. And it's known now as like an impossible song to play. But I didn't know that when I was a teenager. My dad said, you can play all this Steve Vai stuff and Dream Theater. Well, play Fracture and then you can talk to me. And I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And the book is called Failure to Fracture because I failed to play that song for 20 years. For almost 20 years, I struggled and it caused me pain and it caused me mental strife and duress. And it was only when I learned, Robert Fripp is the guy who wrote the piece. I went and spent a week with him in Mexico to learn about his guitar technique. And he showed me what I was doing wrong. And, I had to relearn how to play guitar. And I suffered for so many years with bad technique and I didn't even know it. It's like once someone showed me good technique, then I realized what was so bad about my technique. And a lot of people, if they don't have practice or if they don't have a mentor or a guide who's experienced, it's like you can learn to play the guitar, sure, But then if you try playing Flight of the Bumblebee or Fracture or something like that, you realize your limitations pretty quickly. And then you got a lot of, your brain will constantly make excuses, like people who say, I don't want to read sheet music because it'll limit my creativity. Like, oh yeah, Mozart and Bach certainly, had creativity limitations, because they could read music.
Yeah, that slowed them down.
Yeah, right.
Jimi Hendrix never read music. Yeah,
yeah,
but,
I know,
mean,
exactly.
That's Jimi freaking Hendrix, you know, and that ain't you.
Yeah, show me the great poetry of the illiterate poets of the
exactly.
Last few centuries, right? So I just think about music. That's like learning that song and spending 22 years trying to play it, and then finally playing it, like really playing it. I made a YouTube video of myself playing Fracture, and then it has like a sibling song or a sequel called Fractured, which is even harder if that's conceptually capable. But like it was, I spent all this time failing because I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I didn't know the limitations of my technique. I didn't know what was the right thing to do to be able to accomplish that task. And like I tried brute forcing all that time the wrong shaped, thing into the hole. It doesn't work that way. And we can pretend that we're great at marketing and we can pretend that we know what we're doing, but there is like a legitimate practice to it. There's as much science as there is art. And there are some great marketing science people. This guy, RJ Youngling, I follow him. He's pretty young and he's really smart. And he's worked with Rory Sutherland and a bunch of these other guys, Dave Trott. These people, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they get paid really well because they know what they're doing. They're not going to send you a LinkedIn message. You won't get a Dave Trott message that says, hey, I can increase your MRR by 100K if you buy my course. No, Dave Trott doesn't care about your success at this point, right? So these people, I think about like the success and failure. When you overcome a major failure in your life and you learn the successful things and you're able to repeat that success because you've practiced, because you've established discipline, because you do the hard things because they're worth doing, not because someone tells you to do them, When you start doing all of that and applying it to marketing or music or anything else in your life, you get out of your mental prison of, I can't do this, or I'm only going to do what I know how to do. Like I'm writing a whole book about mental prisons, so it's like a huge topic for me. But like essentially the question is, successes, failures in music and other aspects of my life, they're all the same thing. They are me and my failings to see the options in front of me that could have gotten me to success. Like when I was working for Steve Vai and I said, hey, Steve, I don't think I can make it as a guitar player. I actually think it requires a lot more than I thought, and it's a lot harder than I thought. If I had just said to him, Steve, can you teach me how to market myself so that I can become a guitar player? That would have changed my life. I probably wouldn't be here, right? I might be on guitar. I actually was in last year's April issue of Guitar World magazine, but like nice. I might be on the cover by now. But you know what I mean? Like we just see things as like, oh, that's too hard. We dismiss it. We only want the upside. We only want the easy path. And so we'll say no to the hard things. We won't even realize what the hard things are because we're only open to the easiest things that seem possible. It's like, could anyone run as fast as Usain Bolt? Possibly. I don't know. Is it possible? Maybe not physiologically, but could people run a sub 12-second 100-meter like consistently? Probably. But if you go out and on your street and you see these people running with their arms are flopping everywhere, their feet are going sideways, and you're like, what? Did anyone teach you how to run? And they're running every day. They're practicing the wrong thing. And Vince Lombardi says, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So all of this stuff, like it all plays into the same bucket of information, like marketing, music, art, science, driving. I mean, posture is an art. Sitting and standing straight, that's an art. And people don't do it, but they can, but they don't.
Well, I
So,
think, yeah, I mean, you make a great point, and it says, in Guitar World and in many of those magazines, I like one guy who I think is a great teacher. He's on YouTube, Jens Larson.
oh
Um,
yeah,
he's really good, and he's always talking about exactly what you just said. Running scales, like you're not going to get on stage and run scales. Nobody wants to
right.
hear that. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? You got to make music. You have to practice making music.
Mm.
So I was wondering if you have like one piece of advice that you could give the audience on, maybe connecting all this music and marketing and approach to all of it. Like, what would you say?
Always be questioning yourself. Just never believe that you have it figured out, because you don't. Um, I like, it's part of this mental prisons book, but like, there's a great quote from a physicist named John Wheeler: "The bigger my island of knowledge gets, so does the shore of my ignorance."
Mm.
And so the more you think that you know, the less you actually end up knowing, because there's all sorts of nuance and detail that you have yet to discover. That's why we say pushing the boundaries or breaking out of the box. There's always more. So like, to me, the best advice is like, love yourself, be open to learning, and realize like, you probably don't know what you think that you know. And until you're at the level of, a Dave Trott or something like that, you probably have some learning to do. And that's cool. That's great. But there's a lot of work between where I am and where someone great is. My goal is not to be a great marketer. My goal is to make a living. And I'm more than doing that. So I'm perfectly happy there.
Ooh, bam. So, like we said earlier at the beginning, Anthony is just amazing, and his partner Ellis is also just fire with her
Yeah, she is.
posts when she tears down landing pages and home pages, and she's just brilliant, very savvy copywriter, but also like kind of a humorous take on things where you kind
Always
of do.
snarky.
You
Yeah.
do have to kind of question yourself. You're like, yo, man, we are getting high on our own supply here. So follow these people, check out Edify Content. But if people want to learn more about you and connect with you online, how can they do that, Anthony?
Oh, I'm so easy to find. Just Google my name, and I have 20,000 inboxes by now. So chances are I'll check one of them in the next few days.
Time for a sound quiz.
Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
What is your most favorite sound in the world?
Favorite sound. Man, it's hard to isolate a sound. But the
Well,
thing that came to mind right away is the Price is Right theme song. That's my go-to. It's like that, or the Tom Jones song from The Emperor's New Groove. There's something about these like samba type grooves that's my favorite thing. Just love it.
That's so wonderful and very.
Dude, how great is the bass line in the Price is Right theme song? It's incredible. It's genius.
I downloaded the Price is Right sound library, all of the music.
No way.
Bert Kemper, I forget what his name. Yeah, but killing, like the original Showcase Showdown stuff, like all the amazing. But it does have a lot of that Latin touch.
Oh yeah.
So, okay, we got your favorite sound. What's your least favorite sound?
I can't. When I hear I can't, and I hear, especially from my children, and it's not like I don't like beat my kids into some sort of like discipline, it's not like that. It's more like when people can't see what they're capable of, it just kind of drives me crazy. When I wrote my first book, I gave a copy to my friend, and he goes, "Oh man, I could never write a book." I'm like, "What? You're super smart. What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Yeah, I don't know enough to write a book." I was like, "Couldn't you talk about sales for like 8 hours?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I could totally do that." And then I said, "Then you can write a book." And he's like, "Yeah, I guess you're right." But like, it kind of drives me crazy when I hear people tell me all the things that they can't do that other people somehow can do. Why are they ever done? Like, sure, you can't fly, You can't. But write a book? Of course you could. Don't be dumb. Come on.
I love that. Super motivational. I love talking to you because you have such a great silver lining approach, but you obviously understand the shittiness of clouds too. So it's a
Thanks,
it's a great piquant balance. Okay, here is the sound quiz. You have to guess these sounds. Here we go. Here's the first sound.
Elevator.
Boom. 1 for 1.
Oh, he's good. Oh, he's good. All right,
I
let's
record
see.
sounds.
Okay. All right. You're a weirdo out there with the shotgun mic. You're actually outside of my window now. I don't.
Oh, I'm
like
holding up
that.
my shotgun mic.
I don't like that. Yeah. Oh, you want a wedding to happen? I don't know. Shotgun mic wedding, different.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the second sound.
All right. Too easy. Old Nokia candy bar phone.
Ding, ding, ding. He's 2 for 3. This is going very well for him. Let me turn this up. This is the last sound. Let's see if we can stump Anthony. Here's the third and final sound.
Boiling tea, water.
A little more
It's in a-
specific.
I don't know, like, what's the term? Like a coffee maker? It's some sort of boiling water sound.
Yeah, this he's way too good, Jake.
He's too good. We're deleting
way
this
over our
episode.
heads.
We're deleting this episode because it's too good. We're
Yeah,
taking
that
a
was it.
page from Anthony's book. Once things go great, delete it.
Sounds Like Marketing is a production of Audio Content Lab. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you find your podcasts, and follow Audio Content Lab for the latest in sound marketing advice. Until next time. Audio Content Lab.